joy, peace, life, hope, and of course, hallelujah. Those are Easter words, of course, the phrases we associate with this time of celebration, especially after a long Lent when we stayed away from those kinds of things. We are so blessed in our part of the world that the coming of Easter coincides with the coming of spring, more or less, and so our hearts are lifted by warm, sunny days as we get into this happy time. Here are some other words that we don't usually associate with Easter at all: grief, anger, fear, confusion. But the gospel stories about the resurrection of Christ contain those themes too. It's only with perspective of time and distance that we can see Easter as a joyful, hopeful time. That wasn't the experience, though, of Jesus' disciples. From their perspective, it was a tragedy, a traumatic event. Their relationship with Jesus had impacted their lives enormously. They walked with him, listened to him, witnessed his miracles, and taken to heart his words about mercy and love. They believed that they had found the Messiah they had been waiting for, someone who was going to change everything. The first Easter stories tell how that same group of men and women were absolutely devastated by what had happened to Jesus. Their hope had turned to despair, and their dream of a bright future became a dark nightmare. Jesus had been crucified, dying in the most gruesome, cruel way that anyone could die back then, a public spectacle of death and defeat. Their story became one of loss. They felt betrayed and abandoned. And so, as the gospel opens today, we meet them where they are, so to speak, lost in grief, anguish, doubt, and fear. The opening line of the gospel today has layers of meaning. The doors were locked in the place where the disciples were, not meaning just the room that they were holed up in, but also inside. They were in a place of fear, doubt, and grief, and their doors were locked up tight. But this story is, of course, a good news story for us. The story of Thomas stands as a reminder of what it really means to come to believe. Faith is most valuable when it's being put to the test. It's easy to believe when things are right there in front of you, when everything is falling into place and it's all light and breezy and happy. Not so easy when it's dark and lonely and frightening, when it's all falling down around you and there seems to be no way out. That's when there's no information to rely on, only transformation to hope in. Look at what happened to Thomas and the other disciples. After they received the Spirit of Jesus, they were changed. They were different, no longer cowering and afraid. Now they were bold and confident. Instead of hiding out, they would burst out of that room and tell their story to anyone who would listen. Their situation hadn't changed. They're just in as much danger as they were before. What changed was them. What changed was their perspective. And so the proof of the resurrection was not found, as Thomas discovered, in empty tombs or nail prints or wounded sides. The truth of the resurrection was found in the transformation of those people who believed. And that's the challenge of Easter for us, to believe that things can change and that we can change.